But Jeff, talk about, you started at Apple in 1998. Talk about your journey, not only at Apple, but to get to Apple.
I think Steve said it best when he said in his famous graduation speech, you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case for me. I was working at IBM, straight out of engineering school at NC State, and a great company. I had 13 different jobs in 13 years. They claimed it was some kind of executive grooming program, but honestly, I think it was each manager saying, "Here, you take him. I'm tired of him," and you pass him on like a hot potato.
And now for the highlight of the night, let me bring forward our Chancellor Randy Woodson and Mr. Jeff Williams for our live red chair chat, everybody. Doing this.
Yes, sir.
Feel like Johnny Carson. It's a big night. Look, I got my cards.
I can't even see you in that red chair while you're red.
I know. I should have thought about that, but I wanted to wear the red jacket tonight. I don't whip it out every day, but, I felt like Jeff Williams, my gosh.
Oh, geez.
I need to pull out the red jacket.
Oh,
so, looks pretty sharp. Although, I will tell you, Jeff, while we were waiting on you in the lobby, a young man came up to me and said, "Sir, could you tell me where the restroom is?" I think he thought I worked for the hotel. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many of you have seen our red chair chats that are on, that we've done with a variety of alumni and special people. It's a big deal, and it's really a big deal to be with Jeff Williams tonight. Jeff, as Brian said, is a 1985 graduate from mechanical engineering at NC State, and he's may have had something to do with the phone in your pocket, or notice the color.
Ooh, nicely done. Nicely done. I can't see it, but it's red.
Yeah, and the watch on many of our wrists. In fact, Jeff led the team that developed the iWatch. So he is Apple's chief operating officer and a great graduate of our university. So tell us a bit about your time on campus and talk about what it means. You've been back many times, and talk about what NC State meant to you and what it's like to go back and see things after all those years.
Well, thanks, and thanks for joining the night, and it's great to be here. Gosh, NC State's such a special place. When I go back, there are so many fond memories. I mean, when I walked through the free expression tunnel, when I hit the Brickyard, when I passed the bell tower, what used to be leaving on an engineering project, leaving for a run for Char Grill, which is down the road, I think. And by the way, congratulations on the restoration of the bell tower that happened under your leadership. But I have so many fond memories. My favorite place, though, is Reynolds Coliseum.
Really?
Even before it goes back to when I was a little kid, my uncle was actually the voice of the Wolfpack for the radio station, WPTF, a local radio station, and his name was Wally Osley. So he announced at the football games and the basketball games. And when I was a little kid, he would take me up in the crow's nest up in Reynolds Coliseum because I used to play there instead of in the PNC Arena. And so that was special. And then when I went to school there, it happened across that 1983 time when Jim Valvano and the Wolfpack. It's a little bit like last year's journey, where it was just this the cardiac pack that nobody believed in, and there was a big win, which was so every time I'm on campus and I see Reynolds, I flash back to those moments and the pride in the university, and also there's just something about university days where there's I think this combination of youth and optimism that really makes the university days special, and NC State's just a wonderful part of our history. So,
Well, you mentioned Reynolds. Have you been in Reynolds since it's been renovated? Have you seen the renovated?
I have, yeah.
What a phenomenal job.
It really, the renovations sort of kept some of the character, but it's really well done.
It did, and I'm very proud of that. So Brian mentioned in the introduction that in 2021, we were honored to honor you with an honorary doctorate. And we were coming out of COVID, and so we wanted to have commencement, but we really needed to give people space. And so we did it in Carter, Finley.
Yeah, that was cool.
And that was for you.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, how could it be otherwise? How could it be otherwise? I don't know.
Well, and of course, Russell Wilson was
I noticed there's some, there's always, yeah.
Well, not that that's a big deal, but everybody was there for Jeff Williams. But talk about what that meant to you to be honored.
It meant a lot. You see, my wife has her doctorate from an alleged University of Higher Learning down the road in Chapel Hill, and so forever we've been Dr. and Mr. Williams when we get and so this degree was really important because it leveled the playing field on the home turf, and so I really can't thank you enough. I mean, that's pretty much all it means to me.
Fact, Melissa didn't mention that, but she was a little concerned about you now being a doctor.
on equal, at least equal standing,
Well,
and maybe a little higher given the university cred. So, no, I mean it's an amazing honor. I've met some people here who actually did all the hard work to get a doctorate, and I obviously did not. So I feel a little bit like a cheat, but I will take it shamelessly as I always would. So no, I genuinely treasure it. It's a real honor, especially given my love for NC State. So.
But Jeff, when you were a student at NC State, you had the honor of being a Cwell Fellow. And for those of you that don't know, the Cwell Fellowship was established in honor of, without a doubt, the best chancellor that ever served NC State, John Caldwell. So talk about the Cwell Fellowship, and I know you have a lot of fond memories of the support that you received during your time at NC State as a Caldwell Fellow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was not a Caldwell Scholar. Back then, I think there were 8 Caldwell scholarships given, and I was not a Caldwell Scholar. But they had this, NC State had the Fellows program, which was a leadership development program. It was run by Vice Chancellor Gerald Hawkins. He was Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, but it was really, so there was a group of 20 freshmen selected, the 8 that got the Caldwell Scholarship, and then they had 12, think of them as walk-ons, people that were selected, and the 20 of us went through a program that was really neat. It was focused on leadership development, which isn't something that you generally talk about as a freshman in a university setting, but I heard about it and applied, and for whatever reason, they liked my BS or whatever, but I somehow got in, and it was really incredibly impactful in terms of exposing me to many things I wouldn't have been exposed to in just the normal university environment. And the Vice Chancellor, Dean Hawkins, we called him, really took an interest, and really that work helped shape me. In fact, my father died when I was 8, and I would say there's a couple of people in my life that have been father figures, and he was one of them. Yeah. And it was just really helped sort of mold. He kind of believed in me when he probably shouldn't have, when I look at kind of how rough I was.
Well, I think he saw something clearly that he should have believed in.
Oh,
And
you're kind.
Gerald, it's a great example, Jeff, for me, because I've seen so many people, and you and Melissa led the effort in honoring Gerald in your support of the Caldwell Fellows. But there's so many people at NC State that have impacted other people's lives. And those people's lives that have been impacted have come back and done things in their honor. It reminds us, and it reminds me as chancellor, of how the people at the university impact so many people's lives.
I agree.
And Gerald has done that with many students.
Yes, he has.
And you're a great example of that. You and Melissa have been tremendous supporters at NC State. And one of the things that you've told me about the impact of the Caldwell Fellows Program was the experiential learning
Right.
opportunities, leadership, study abroad, things that really make a difference in a young person's life. And thank you, because you have supported over 200 students of having experiential learning opportunities. So talk about why that's important to you and why it's been important for you to give back to the institution to support students having those kind of experiences.
Sure. I'm a big believer in, obviously, the importance of the classroom, and that has to be a priority. But so much of my learning, and I've seen in others learning in their university days, happens outside of the classroom in terms of development. And there were so many opportunities, partially through the Fellows Program and others, that popped up for me that were foundational to me. I mean, I grew up in a really modest kind of environment. Had never really traveled outside of the state. I mean, I a couple times outside of the state, but not on an airplane, that kind of thing. And my freshman year, got a chance to go study Shakespeare at Oxford, kind of through NC State's had a study abroad program, and there was a scholarship from the American English Speaking Union that I applied for, and couldn't have done it without that. We didn't have the resources, but just being over there was an experience. But also, the guy who taught it was one of the foremost authorities on Shakespeare in the world, and he took us to plays, and he really turned me on to Shakespeare and to the humanities. And I think that's, at Apple we talk about the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. And I think I would have been a very different person had I not had that broadening experience. And there were others, be they internships or the Center for Creative Leadership or whatever, that I got exposed to at NC State. And so I was so fortunate that somebody helped make that happen for me, that Melissa and I wanted to give back and are trying to support that for other students. But I do believe so much of the learning experience happens not only in the classroom, but through these other elements.
I can't imagine that at your time at Oxford, you were surrounded by a lot of mechanical engineers studying Shakespeare. So but you still stuck with mechanical engineering.
I did stick with it. I actually started as a chemical engineer and then switched into mechanical later. But I loved math and science as well, and so I did stick with it. But feel like and I have a greater appreciation for the importance of the sort of every day in my life, the sort of the non-technical side as well, yeah. I think.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that we do at NC State really well, is marrying the liberal arts with a very technology-based university.
I agree.
And speaking of technology, so Apple is such an innovative company, always has been, and I've been a user throughout my life since computers were around. And so is my wife, because she's a graphic artist. And Apple was the early source for all things graphic. But we've got a lot of young people in the audience, and talk about how a company as bold as Apple thinks about innovation, and give advice to a lot of young people in the room about preparing to work in a workforce that needs innovation?
Work in a workforce that needs it. I think it's a great question. I have to think about that for a second.
I'll give you another one if it's too hard.
No, it's not. In terms of the advice, I think study deep in the engineering space, but I do think there's this element of sort of the surrounding. When I think about innovation, I'd have different advice for just the innovation aspect than just the hardcore engineering aspect. The innovation piece at Apple is so interesting because ideas surface sort of anywhere across Apple. We don't have the idea department or the innovation department or the innovation process or whatever, but they surface anywhere. And I think there has to be this continual sort of pulling on threads of ideas and kernels of ideas. And with that, you have to sometimes push past the rational and the practical. It may sound a little silly, but you take something like the phone, where the touch screen was an enabling factor for the phone, and it seems obvious now, but it wasn't. And there's rational thought that would say we had tactile buttons on the phone originally before the iPhone came along, and
Yeah.
there's lots of reasons why it wouldn't work to touch glass. You can't do it without looking at it, blah, blah, blah. And so you have to sometimes suspend disbelief and let ideas percolate. And so my advice for people who are looking in the innovative side of things is to take those kernels of ideas and let them bounce around for a while. Because I think we often get trained as engineers in the tech world to be very practical and logical, and there's a piece of that. But I think this element of sometimes that can be like an inert gas that'll knock out any spark of creativity, and so that would be one piece of advice.
But Jeff, talk about, you started at Apple in 1998. Talk about your journey, not only at Apple, but to get to Apple. I know you were working on a triangle.
Yeah, I think Steve said it best when he said in his famous graduation speech, "You can only connect the dots looking backwards."
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case for me. I was working at IBM, straight out of engineering school at NC State, and a great company. I had 13 different jobs in 13 years. They claimed it was some kind of executive grooming program, but honestly, I think it was each manager saying, "Here, you take him. I'm tired of him," and you pass him on like a hot potato. But my wife was working for Glaxo in the Triangle doing pharmaceutical research, and we had our third kid and decided something had to give. It's funny, this was pre-COVID when you could just, in the airport, you could go all the way to the gate back in those days. And so I had the three kids, and she had a flight coming in from business, and I had one going out, and we were going to pass them at the airport, and her flight got delayed, and I was looking around like, is there a bus locker I can put them in or something like that? I didn't know what to do. And we realized something's got to give, and I don't remember how we ended up, whether it was a coin toss or whatever. We decided she was going to take a leave of absence, and I was going to go. We'll do something different and take an adventure. And I was going to take a job with Dell Computer. They were on fire at the time. They were hot. Most of you are too young to remember that, but I was going to take a job there, and out of courtesy, Tim Cook, who's our current CEO, he had just joined Apple, and I had worked with him at IBM, and he said, "Come out and check out Apple." But I thought, this is very low probability because Apple was in really bad shape. But I came out, I can't say no to Tim, and I came out for an interview, and I spent the day with people at Apple, and ended up calling my wife saying, "What do you think about moving to Cupertino instead of Austin?" And she said, "Oh, do you think Apple's going to do well?" I go, "No, they'll be belly up in 2 years." But there's this contagious enthusiasm that I really want to be a part of, because it's kind of funny. It's hard to think of Apple in those terms now, but Apple had just lost $1 billion. Had to borrow money to make payroll. And I was in this interview with Steve, and Steve was not as big a deal at the time. I didn't know if his name was Jobs or Jobs at the time, but so I was kind of quasi asking him questions like, "Well, what's your revenue growth plan?" And it was funny. He looked at me and he said, "We're going to be the Sony of the PC industry," because Sony was really cool at that time. They had the Walkman and so forth. And he said, "We're going to bring fashion to computers." And it was right before the iMac came out. And then the last thing he said, "We're going after the consumer," because Apple at that time was chasing business enterprise and had walked away from the consumer. And I thought, "Guy, you do not know what the hell you're talking about," because at IBM we tried to make this PC Junior to sell to consumers, and it was a bloodbath. The margins were thin, and blah 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 blah. But history would say maybe he was right and I was wrong. Regardless, it's one of the few right brain decisions I've ever made. 100% of the people told me it's a really bad idea. Go to Dell, or stay at IBM. You're going places. IBM felt like a big machine, and this felt like what I would imagine a Silicon Valley startup, maybe on steroids, would feel like. And it was just palpable, this contagious enthusiasm. And honestly, as big as we've gotten as a company, it still feels that way today to me. I still feel like I'm entering a big startup, but
What a great story.
But anyway, that's how I ended up there. And I've just been the luckiest guy in the world to be able to work with all the amazing people I work with, and under Steve and Tim's leadership, and it's just been an amazing journey.
Well, Apple has had these amazing iconic products, and one of which we're wearing on our watch and or on our wrist, and you were very involved in leading the team, working with the team to develop the iWatch. Talk a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, I think the Apple Watch, I give credit to the work in the design studio of people. Again, it's these kernels of ideas, and the idea is so important, but they were playing with the concept of maybe a watch and a screen that could be on your wrist, and starting to model that and look at that. And it's, again, another example where the idea could have been squashed early, because sort of the rational thought at that time is, well, you got your phone with you, and the screen on the phone's bigger, it's going to be better, and you can do stuff on the phone, so why do you need another one on your wrist? And what's the... So it could have been snubbed out early as an idea, but the team kept pulling on threads and concluded there's real value in sort of the in glance in the moment, and then pulling on more threads and saying, we got this real opportunity to impact people's health. And we pulled in people from the fashion industry, because this is the first wearable kind of thing versus the other products that you carry, and pull on all of those threads. And it's really just part of the magic Apple process of everybody being involved and following thoughts. And of course, there's the deep engineering rigor to go pursue and make the product. But in terms of the creation of these, it's really neat. I mean, we get so many letters every single morning. I wake up, there's letters from someone wearing the Apple Watch who writes us to say that it made such an impact on their health, and in many cases helped save their life because of the heart rate monitoring and other things that people will. It's been incredibly rewarding for all of the team that's worked on that. But when I think of the nuggets of the ideas in the very start, I think we had no idea where the journey would take us. But I think it's this notion of letting ideas develop and then following those that Apple as a company is so good at. So
You really are.
My watch is telling me to stand up.
you're gonna live a long time, Susan. So you just pay
Ladies
attention to
and
that
gentlemen,
watch.
That's Susan Woodson.
She's here all night. She's here all night, folks.
We'll be in a city near you soon. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Red Chair Chats, and thank Jeff Williams for everything that he's done as an NC State graduate and what he continues to do at Apple. It's a thrill to have you with us tonight. So thank you all for joining us.
Whoa! Is this thing getting ready to end? Because I'm going to ask you a question. You're the retiring chancellor.
Whoa, no, that wasn't.
No, it wasn't, but I'm calling an audible. I don't see it. I'm calling an audible. We've got, after 15 amazing years, and I have tremendous respect for what John Caldwell did as well, but I think there's somebody in the running there for best chancellor at NC State. You've done a phenomenal job, and we need something, and I maybe two questions. One, you wake up and your house is on fire.
That actually happened.
There's Susan. There's your dogs, and there's your guitar collection. What do you grab in what order? I need.
All of the guitars, or
all of them.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna start with Susan.
That's a good answer, especially with her on the front row.
And but then there would be one guitar that would be right after that.
Right after that.
Yeah.
On behalf of all the alum and students, thank you for your leadership over the past 15 years.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.